Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SGS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And we are going to dig down on Diddy in just a ditty in a moment. Not sure what's going on with camera one in global headquarters, but it is out. So you're getting this crazy angle of me off the laptop camera. I kind of like this weird, insane shot. You see the old mural of Carm right over my right ear yelling at me. My dad's book on the table, so all is well. And then all the other signage. So for full disclosure, Tim Jansen's going to walk us through this in a moment. Diddy, his attorneys were supposed to be in court today, and it appears that court date has been pushed back, but there is some sort of conference hearing. Before we get into that, you guys all know famed Tallahassee defense attorney R. Timothy Jansen, the letter R and the O-U-R. He was also a federal prosecutor for 5 years prior to becoming a defense attorney. Who better to ask about a federal prosecution than a federal prosecutor, which we're about to do. And then Tommy Scoville, who corrected me. He's not from New Hampshire. He is from the great state of Vermont. That's a place where I'd love one day to possibly move to, except in the wintertime. Love Vermont. And Tommy was very successful in his endeavors till he got hooked on pain meds, and that had him eventually end up robbing banks to support his habit, and that put him into federal prison system. So who better to ask about being in there than Tommy Scoville? So Tim Jansen, by the way, if you're from an exotic locale like Rahway, New Jersey, let me know and I'll mention it at the end.
Raw way.
Tim Jansen. Diddy was supposed to be in court. It's actually pretty hard to get information on all this. Tommy says that there is a conference hearing today, but then he's apparently supposed to be, I'm seeing that from Britt K, a new lawsuit. We'll get into that with Tommy Scoville. But Tim, what's going on with these court maneuverings? Looks like he's not in court, but now he has a conference hearing, but a court date scheduled for tomorrow. What's going on behind the scenes?
All right. So they had their original first appearance with the magistrate judge. He did the first appearance. He did a detention hearing. He has a right to appeal that. He did appeal it. He appealed it to the district court judge, and he lost that. So what happens now is the court wants to get it on a docket, get it moving. In the federal system, unlike in the state system, those feds love to set the cases for trial like within 45, 50 days, even though they know it's not going to trial. They then want you to waive it, but this is within speedy. They want the parties to get moving, get issues going, get discovery going. So I anticipate that they're probably going to have a case management, get the lawyers who's going to represent them to file notice, see if, and they'll do the old Brady demand, make sure all the Brady's turned over. And then they'll try to start having these case managements where they'll set the docket. When do you think you can go to trial? Do you want a speedy trial? Are there issues that we need to know about? That's going to be next. I don't anticipate this trial going till probably May next year. Although the conditions at the Metro place probably might want him to move it faster. But he has to know, Diddy has to know, and his lawyer has to know that the trial's not a positive thing for him because they're throwing all their cards in to get him bond. And if they want bond so badly, what does that tell you, right?
I mean, Tim, it was a $50 million bond that was rejected in your entire career. Have you ever heard of something coming close to that? I don't recall that with Bernie Madoff or any of these, high rollers, not even Sam Bankman-Fried, who, by the way, we're going to get to because apparently he's in the same housing unit as the former FTX crypto bro. But Tim, you ever hear of a $50 million bond?
No, and the other thing that read all the red flags was not only was he going to turn his passport in, but all his family members' passport, because he knows what everybody's thinking. The whole family's fleeing to a country on a private plane with no passports, which they can give $2 million and fly in and be there for life if he's got $1 billion.
By the way, Snoop Dogg is in the house. Happy to have him here. I don't think. Do we know Snoop was never involved in these freak offs? Tommy, have you heard his name bandied about yet?
No, everybody at one time or another attended a Diddy party, but in terms of the after parties and the stuff that sounds foul, his name has not been brought up. I think he's safe.
East Coast, West Coast too, I guess. So it keeps them separated. But Tommy, Sam Bankman-Fried, young crypto dude who I don't know, had an arena named after his company in Miami, and then turns out was all some big Ponzi scheme, and it looks like he's going to be spending many years behind bars. P. Diddy, or Diddy, I should say, just got moved into the same housing unit at MDC. This is it for those who are not familiar. This is the most notorious federal housing lockup in the country. What does this mean, Tommy, that he's moved into the same unit as Sam Bankman-Fried, who I assume is being treated as a white-collar criminal? And how many units do they have in this place? I mean, it's a big building, but
it's absolutely huge. But what it means is that they're both being segregated. They're keeping. It makes a lot of sense. It would be really surprising if they weren't in the same unit, because no matter how many floors that building has, and there's a bunch of them, all of the men that end up in the segregated housing unit are going to end up on one floor in the shoe, where they keep people separate, usually because they've done something wrong. But in this case, with both Sam Bankman-Fried and with Diddy, you just can't afford to have those guys anywhere near general population, because they've got victim written all over them. These people are going to try to victimize these guys the second they see them.
I love that Tim Jansen taking calls because he's a power lawyer. Tommy Scoville, there are reports, not confirmed, but there are reports from multiple media outlets that perhaps Diddy has stopped eating at the MDC in Brooklyn. What does that tell you? Is that a common thing? I mean, the food's got to be awful compared to his live-in chef. What is that all about? Is it a protest? What do you think's happening if, in fact, he is not eating?
Well, here's the thing. If, in fact, he's not eating, we're going to probably hear about it pretty quickly, if that is, in fact, the truth. If you go on a hunger strike in the feds, they're going to let you skip about 9 meals. That has been my experience. After the 9th meal, they will intervene. But if you announce that you're going to be doing a hunger strike or anything like that, the first thing they do is cut you off of buying any food and make sure that you don't have any of it in your cell, because they want to document whether or not you're actually consuming any food. That's not going to be much of an issue, because in the shoe, he shouldn't have a whole lot of possessions and things, and especially because he was purported to be on the watch, and that means that he would have nothing. There would be nothing in that cell but a very thick blanket and the dress that they've got him wearing.
By the way, is he still on that direct observation as far as we know? In other words, just watching to make sure he doesn't do anything to hurt himself?
He wouldn't be off of it. He would have to still be on it. I've never seen them do it for less than 72 hours. That's usually the minimum observation if somebody says that they want to, do something to themselves.
By the way, what happens after 9 days of not eating? How do they force you? They do that intravenously? What happens?
They do it up your nose is what they do. They put a tube up your nose that goes down into your stomach, and they feed you through that tube.
And that can't be done in a cell, right? They've got to bring you, I assume, to
medical.
The only time that I had seen it happen was out in Florence, Colorado. You leave the facility to go to a hospital to get it done. If the people do it long enough, they'll bring the equipment there, to the facility. But most guys don't. I mean, most guys threaten it, but they don't make it past that first 3 days. That brings in a lot of attention when you say you're going to go on one of those. The captain, the warden, everybody in between. You're going to get a lot of visits.
One more for Tommy, then we'll switch over to Tim on the legal side. But this is your wheelhouse, Tommy. Drug recovery. Truth Seeker Human says Diddy is suffering from drug addiction withdrawal, in my opinion. vomiting, diarrhea, headache, muscle cramps, delirium, hallucinations, depending on what drugs he's addicted to. How big a problem is that? Do we know if Diddy was addicted? It's got to be a pretty common problem in the prison system, correct, Tommy? How do they deal with that?
Yeah, it's a very common problem in the prisons, especially in pretrial detention, because guys are coming in off the streets with drug habits. You know, in theory, you shouldn't be able to maintain a drug habit inside because they try to keep the dope from getting in there. But a lot of people show up. Yeah, in theory, a lot of people show up with drug habits, and there's not a lot they do for you. Honestly, the detox protocol ends up being something for your stomach, a headache medication like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. They don't give you medication like of a drug kind. They don't do medical assisted treatment kind of stuff. But yeah, allegedly he had a pretty big problem with opiates. He was fairly well strung out on them, and they found a pink powder in his hotel room when he got arrested, which tested positive for a couple of different drugs. So he's definitely still using it. I think that's pretty logical. You know, the first 72 hours are usually the worst of that withdrawal. So that could very well explain why he's not eating.
Yeah. By the way, this comment is definitely true. For those joining late, the main camera is down in global headquarters, which is why you're seeing this crazy ass shot. Amy, New Jersey. Diddy's freaking out like Joel would have if he was in jail. Diddy's got nothing on me. I don't know what I'd be doing, but be a hell of a lot worse than whatever Diddy's doing right now. Tim Jansen. Let's get to the charges again, because this is important, especially in terms of moving forward. He's now charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. So these are pretty serious charges. What do they mean on the federal level? Let's start with racketeering. Why is he being charged with on a RICO charge?
They're calling it a criminal enterprise. It's a penalty that was used to take the mob down. That's what the prosecution was. And they're going to add in a bunch of different crimes that he committed: arson, battery, sexual battery, all these crimes. And if he's convicted, he can get life in prison. Okay. It opens up the evidence that can come in. Count 2, sex trafficking. I think there's a minimum mandatory 15 years in prison. And then count 3, solicitation. That's used to call the Mann Act, moving females or males across state lines for sexual pleasure. And I think that's up to 10 years. But don't be misguided by this. If he's convicted on the RICO and the sex trafficking, he's not getting 15 or 20 years. I saw some lawyer in New York say that. He's getting 30 to life, okay? And he has a very liberal judge. But when that judge hears everything, that judge is not going to give him less than 30 to life, and probably give him life in prison if they can prove what they were doing, that he was trafficking underage kids, drugging them, beating them. And that video was so disturbing. If that's the real P. Diddy, he's probably going to get life.
I mean, Tim, what about the privilege here? What about all the money, the celebrity? Does that help him or hurt him, in your opinion, right now?
No, you could send Mike Tyson into a prison and some idiot will be a fool enough to take him on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to win. Now 2 or 3 of them could take him on, but Tommy can tell you this. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're rich or you're somebody special, someone wants to take you down so they can build themselves up in the prison. Or they just want to take it down because they blame you for their lot in life, right? So, and there's also drugs in that MDC. Tommy can tell you there's plenty of drugs. Now, he may not be getting it in the SHU unit, and people think that's medical. That's not the medical unit. SHU unit is where they separate you either because you did something wrong or you're a potential witness and they're moving you to protect you from other people, or to protect yourself and for suicide watch. So he's not in medical. He may become in medical, but that special housing unit, you get no privileges, no phone, no visitation. And my memory is you get 1 hour a week outside, right, Tommy?
Depending on the level of custody, it could be 1 hour a day. It could be 1 hour a week. It just depends.
And does he have to take it, Tommy, or can he?
He does not.
He does not. So
you're
he could just
you're not
continue.
forced.
Yeah. And again, he has nothing in that cell, no books, no nothing. He's just in that gown, correct?
But correct.
Yeah,
and if you're on observation, you get nothing.
So the shoe units, you get these big, you see that big facility there. The shoe unit may have 8 cells, right? And they've got the guards, and one's rotating, walking around at all times. And if he's on suicide, they got someone sitting there. But they see you, and you really can't do anything. They don't see you. Now, what happened with Epstein was just crazy, because there's no chances that the cameras went down. There's no chance that the guards fell asleep. Okay. Something nefarious happened. And anybody that doesn't believe that believes Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy, right?
Tim stirring up the controversy here, but look at that.
Well, I thought that too, until I went out there with an investigator, and I went into the bookstore depository, and I stood there and looked down, and then I walked to the grassy knoll, and I'm like, oh, but I couldn't have missed from the grassy knoll. But I was like, there's no way I could have hit him from that bookstore depository up there.
Send all the conspiracy mail to Tim Jansen at Jansen.
That's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's legal.
Tommy Scoville, Epstein. Is this where Epstein was? For some reason, I don't know why I thought Epstein was at Rikers.
No. Epstein was not at Rikers, because he was Rikers is a state facility.
State, correct.
So, he was at a holding facility in Manhattan. He was at the Manhattan Detention Center. The Manhattan Detention Center is no longer up for business. They shut that down after the what happened with Epstein, and I don't believe it is reopened right now. The only one open in all of the 5 boroughs is MDC. The Brooklyn facility, and that's a problem too. It creates overcrowding. There's that facility is just plagued with issues.
Yeah, by the way, we just did a story on the most rat-infested cities. New York is #1. I can guarantee you there's plenty who, of their own free will, these rats have made MDC their home. They're hanging out in there with Diddy, which kind of really grosses me out on top of everything else. Tommy, would you ever see a rat scurry by you in the prison?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is definitely a reality in certain places. I saw them really bad in Atlanta. But yeah, vermin is a thing in prison. So not a great place to be.
Yeah, that does not sound fun at all. We're going to open this up in just a few minutes to look at this. Sperry Tally says Tim Jansen 10,000% correct about JFK. That's a separate show. But we're going to open it up. So if you've got questions for the esteemed guests, Triple Q, you know the drill, and I will scroll down. I am at the bottom of the chat right now. Tim Jansen from Jody B always has interesting questions. Will a defendant like Diddy blame his attorney because he gives him the okay to turn himself in, but it was all a ploy to switch things up, or did he know? When you do convince a client to turn themselves in, are they angry at you once they're in there and they realize that they're stuck in there?
Well, it sounds like he got the same advice Donna got, right? The cops came to his house and raided his house, right?
Yeah.
Raided his house, all of his locations. And what was he doing for the last, what was that, like 3 months ago or 6 months ago? He had to know that they're there, right? Donna was she waited till after the conviction. She can't blame the lawyer. The lawyer, his role is, I got to tell you, if there's a warrant out, turn yourself in. If I don't, then I can be charged, lose my license, which I'm not going to do. But sure, when you give somebody advice, and I think you saw that he relied on that because he was making the argument, well, he knew after the search warrants, he moved to New York to be there. He's not a risk of flight. He was putting this package together to get bond, and it didn't work. And, that lawyer has a tough job, this client, okay? You can imagine the pressure he has on him from all of P. Diddy's people. Could you imagine what they're paying him to go out and make these statements? And
Tim, what are they? No, I can't imagine. What are they paying him? Is it an upfront fee?
Oh, absolutely, because there's a forfeiture provision, so the government's going to try to take and freeze all his assets.
So what do they pay? What do they pay him?
if he didn't get at least $5 to $10 million, which he probably could have gotten pretty quickly. I mean, I would leave this show if they called me and said, we got $10 million for you to come help P. Diddy. I'd be on a plane.
Hey, Tim's available. Mark Agnifilio is the guy's name. So how many people, Tim, does he have helping him on this case right now?
He's probably got lots of lawyers. He's probably got, I would guess, 5. You know, he's got $1 billion, so he can have all kinds of different lawyers doing different things, right? And he's probably got private investigators also out there working. But that's also probably the reason why the judge didn't grant him bond, because he's got this access to people out there that can affect and contact witnesses, get witnesses to not want to come forward. So it's a double-edged sword, really. But he does have the resources. He is a possible risk of flight. I don't know of anybody more a risk of flight than he is, even though he stayed after they searched his house. You don't really need a passport to fly into a country. All you have to do is get on a plane, right? You get on the right plane and you land at the right place, or you get on a boat. You get on one of these commercial boats and you're a passenger on a manifest. And once you're in that country, and then you get a representative there that says, hey, P. Diddy's going to put $25 million to the government. Wow, P. Diddy now is a citizen of that country, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tommy, you know, we talked about this last time. His jet here in South Florida, the feds came and visited, but it didn't seem like he was unable to take off. Do you think he's beating himself up now that he's not in Tahiti or somewhere like that?
I think he's going to spend the rest of his life wondering why he didn't run when he had the chance. I think that's probably what the vast majority of the time he spends awake is going to be spent on that thought.
Why is it, if you have those means, Tommy, and he knows what he's done, what is the mental calculus that keeps him? I mean, I would have been on a private jet. There's no doubt.
I'd have been on the first thing smoking, but I think that honestly, I think this is an arrogance thing for him. I think that, you know, this guy really believes his own press clippings, you know, that he's built this empire and that he's kind of untouchable. He liked to spend a lot of time bragging about the fact that he was a billionaire, and he got there through having a lot of dirt on a lot of people. And I really wholeheartedly believe that in his head, he was going to go into New York, he was going to set up this bail package, and he was going to be back in Florida, you know, quicker than you could snap your fingers. I don't think for a second he thought that they were going to turn down his bail. His bailout. I just don't think he ever saw that one coming. I think he got blindsided.
Yeah, that's I'd have to agree with you. He figured, hey, $50 million, I'll be out. No go.
And I bet his lawyers did too. You know what I mean? His lawyers probably were not aware of just how many people he was messing with. You know, the prosecution called him a serial abuser and a serial for interfering with witnesses, you know, and intimidating witnesses.
Yeah, for sure. Tim Jansen, NJ Cool Chick, friend of the show, always in here. Tim, do you think the same jailhouse malfunctions will happen on Diddy's watch and he will unalive himself? Talking about the Epstein situation, is Diddy going to follow Epstein's lead, whether he wants to or not, Tim?
Sorry, I'm trying to move a sentencing I have in Fort Lauderdale Monday because of the hurricane. So I'm filing an emergency motion because I can't even book travel.
Yeah,
to
there's
get
a
down
big.
there.
By the way, Cat 3 hurricane supposed to be moving up the west side.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen again. But in all my experience, I've never seen where guards fall asleep and the camera doesn't work on a high asset like Epstein. It just doesn't happen. And that may be the reason why they have him in the special housing unit. Was Epstein in the special housing unit? He must have been, was he?
They lied to us about everything, right? They said that he was on the watch, and then they showed pictures of the inside of his cell, and there was a bunk bed, which you wouldn't have in there, and there were sheets all over the floor. So we don't know exactly where he was. We were lied to.
So the problem is you know, and I hate to be a conspiracy people, you can't believe everything you hear. You can't believe everything you read. Only the people, as Tommy knows on the inside, what really happens. And then people are threatened with their jobs and their careers if they speak out. And so we don't really know. But it's not normal that a inmate could kill themselves if they were on special watch, right? Now, if he was just on regular and he's just in his cell and they don't do any precautions and he could take his pants and put them around his neck and somehow, yeah, he could do that, but not normal.
By the way, it's a 2 for Tuesday for Tim. Tim's coming back at 7:30 tonight, along with 2 retired judges. The topic is, will a plea deal happen in the what is now the Adelson Circus? Donna, Wendy, Charlie, does someone flip on somebody? You're going to get Tim's take, and as well as 2 retired judges who are incredibly smart. It will be a show worth your while. If you're enjoying this one, hit the like button, subscribe, and there you go. Tim Jansen from Lil Old Me, which I couldn't pronounce last time. I was saying Lilo, whatever. Anyway, will the government take all of Diddy's cash and assets as part of the investigation? It would be poetic justice to see him locked up and broke. I mean, will there be a seizure of assets where he's not able to get a hold of them or his family?
I guarantee there will be. And one, there's 2 ways the government can take your assets, right? It's called proceeds. It's called facilitation. And proceeds is pretty standard. What does that mean? I sold drugs, the money I made, that's called proceeds. Facilitation. I drove this big old fancy truck to deliver my drugs. We're going to take that truck because it facilitated the crime. And so we're going to forfeit that also. And so that's why you'll see, and I've seen over the years, that drug dealers don't use their cars, they rent cars or they lease cars. So there's no forfeiture, right? And then when they started renting cars, the cops then said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we know what cars are rental. It's going to have a special tag number so we know who's driving that rental car down the highway in the middle of the night with a suspicious young male, right? So it's a system of checks and balances. When one does something, they'll do another. But the feds use forfeiture as a major thing to combat crime and help pay for their budgets. And there's an incentive. You can get a sentence reduction based a helpful one by giving assets, right? The government loves money.
And Tim, I mean, this is an obvious point, but I just want to hammer it home. Even if you're a billionaire, allegedly like Diddy is, federal government's pockets are still deeper. I mean, as much as he goes, he'll never be able to stand up to the weight of Uncle Sam, will he?
Well, we know the government doesn't have a budget, right? they never reach it. We talk about a balanced budget, it just never happens.
Yeah, that happens like every 3 months that they go into a panic, which is happening right now.
Yeah.
Tommy Scoville, if convicted, great question. Where is Diddy likely to end up in his forever home? Will there be a forever home? Is he going to get bounced around?
I would say that he has a chance of ending up at the Administrative Detention Center at ADX. He really does. These are some really heavy crimes. If not, he's going to end up.
Is that the Supermax? I'm sorry. Is that the Supermax?
That is. Yeah,
in Colorado?
Supermax, Florence. Yeah, Florence, Colorado. I think that's, I mean, these are the way that the BOP is going to determine where they put him is based on the crimes that he is convicted of. And you can't really pick an uglier set of crimes to have to get convicted of. His points, because it is a point system, because of these particular crimes, are going to be through the roof, right? These are going to be some of the ugliest yard points you've ever seen. He's not going to be eligible for anything other than the highest custody levels, which would either be the ADX or a United States penitentiary. And the trouble with that is they can't send him to a regular penitentiary because he will be destroyed in a matter of minutes. So there's only a couple of options. If he doesn't go to ADX, he's going to end up in Florida at a place called Coleman. He's going to end up in Tucson, or he's going to end up in Terre Haute, Indiana. Those are the only 3 spots that they could put him.
And Tommy, just so I cannot sleep tonight, walk us through a day at the ADX. I mean, tell us, the ADX is a Supermax where I think the Tsarnaev brother, the Boston Marathon bomber, Ted Kaczynski's there. The guy from Oklahoma City bombing is there. What is a day like in the ADX?
Yeah, so ADX strives to keep you from talking to other inmates. So your day
Tommy,
is just gonna,
Tommy, were you in the ADX?
I was not.
Okay.
Thankfully,
All right.
I was across the street. I was at the same compound. I was at the
Okay.
Supermax facility at Florence, but fortunately, I was not at the ADX facility. However, the whole at Florence Supermax is identical to what the cells are like at ADX. So I got to see what those cells look like. They don't have a bed. It's a concrete platform dead center in the middle of the room. So there's no metal anywhere in there that you can start cutting on. There's the bench, the table, every single thing in the room is made of concrete. And I promise you, it has a different kind of effect on you mentally when you can't move furniture. Everything is just in place. And all day long, they're in there. The only distraction is it's the only place in the BOP that they give you a television set, and it comes out of the ceiling. And there is some programming that you can watch, but you are in solitary confinement 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you go outside, you're not with anybody either. So it's really about being alone.
The rest of your life could literally be spent alone without talking to a soul. That's insane.
There are people that have been there for decades.
And what do you get on TV there? What, I mean, like, is it like the rabbit ear kind of TV with like the fuzzy black and white snow?
You get they have cable television there. They do have cable TV, but that's also where you read your letters.
Reruns, right?
Yeah,
Benny Hill reruns.
Yeah, they're living for the Benny Hill reruns. You also get your letters that way. They don't hand you any mail. You get the phone will come to your cell once a month, right? So this is really, you're not just cut off from other human beings in prison, but you're far more restricted with your ability to communicate with others on the street.
Let me ask you a very simple question. When you're there, how do you not lose your mind and just go completely insane?
Well, I don't know that anyone does. The people that I've met that have come out of ADX have been different, to be sure.
By the way, I don't want to get too sensationalistic here, but Diddy's Jet Lube Force One pilot is in the chat. Tim, remember this question about Diddy taking a plea, but this is a first. Diddy's Jet Lube Force One pilot is in chat. People are making too much of the 1,000 bottles. It was baby oil, I believe. I got corrected on that. His Jet Lube Force One runs on lube and the tears of regular people. He is saving the planet. Thank you for that. Always good, despite the serious subject matter, to have a little bit of levity. Tim Jansen, what is going on again? Pull back the curtain. So we're hearing some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry being bandied about. So what are prosecutors doing behind the scenes? Are they leaning on people? Diddy had this assistant who's 37 years old. She was his right-hand woman, did everything for him. Are they applying tons of pressure? That's question number one. And question number two, is there anything Diddy could do to extract himself from this by giving someone else up?
Certainly they're going to put pressure on people now that he's in. They can approach people now that Diddy's in custody with no bond and say, listen, we can give you protection. Diddy's not in. He's never going to know. And we will move you. We'll give you a number. I had a client who was really afraid that he didn't, and he was only allowed, this is the first time I ever did that. They just gave him a number, Tommy. And in all the reports, he had a number and he did not have to testify. All he did was give information and some cell phones. And he got a 5K1, got a sentence reduction, right? They actually closed the courtroom at sentencing. And then they were going to put him on supervised release, but he didn't live in this country. So the judge goes, you're on supervised release till you get your home of your country. Supervision is terminated when you step foot in your home country. Have you ever seen that before? The probation officer called me and said, how did you do that? I'm like, well, the judge ordered it.
Wow.
So this is some of the latest news that's out on this. The New York Post obviously doing some strong reporting on this because they're there. Apparently Diddy did briefly speak to his 7 children. He has 7 children with 4 different women. He's got Quincy, age 33, Justin, 30, Christian, 26, daughters Chance, Jesse, Delilah, who are 18, 17, 26, 18, 17. And then he has a baby named Love. She's 23 months old. So obviously a baby, probably good for her that she does not realize what's going on. In this story, Tommy, they say they're reporting that Diddy's lawyers are now not necessarily trying to remove him from MDC. They did call it hell on earth, but they say he's more concerned about his kids and their well-being. Do you buy this? That he's, or is this a PR thing to try to make him look like he's really looking out? I'm sure he could be a good father. Being a horrible person, a good father is not necessarily mutually exclusive, but is this more for PR than it is for anything else?
Well, I think it's more for PR, and I think he's a terrible father, personally. The kind of proof to that is that his son is now charged with the exact same crime, right? Drugging somebody on a boat, or not charged rather, but accused. He is, there is a lawsuit pending against, of course he denies, but there's a lawsuit pending against the son that he did the same thing over a holiday on a boat. So it doesn't seem like he's done a tremendous job at shepherding the family. I think this is a publicity stunt. I don't think he cares about anybody on earth other than himself.
Do we know, I probably would agree with you on that one, but do we know which son it is? There's Quincy 33, Justin 30. I mean, we saw, if you remember the LA mansion raid, you could see some of the sons out there on the phone. Do you happen to know which son it is that's being accused of this? And I would not be surprised to find out if others, are doing the same thing, if other sons are doing the same thing.
Yeah, I believe we're talking about Justin. I believe his middle name is King. I believe that is the son who was accused of following in dad's footsteps.
Did you see the video, Joel, where he Justin Bieber, he hugs him and then he taps him looking for a wire?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does that tell you about your relationship when you're worried about, your friends wearing a wire?
It's never a good omen, I would say. And as they say, the chickens have come home to roost, as far as I know. Samurai's mom. What about this one, Tim? I mean, you got these mega names, Usher, Justin Bieber. There's all kinds of reports. His the father of his wife, I think it's Haley Bieber, who is Stephen Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's brother. He left some sort of cryptic message I'm going to get to a little further down on my notes, but what about someone like Justin Bieber? Do the feds knock on their door? I heard a person who prosecuted, I want to say was maybe working on the Epstein case, basically said the federal government could not care less about celebrity. Is this true, Tim?
Well, this is like men who are victims of domestic violence. They're not going to come forward and admit it. Men who are sexually assaulted don't want to come forward. Justin Bieber is a high profile, very successful guy. You think he's going to come in and want to sit in a courtroom and say he was molested by P. Diddy? And he is too easy to get to because a lot of the people are friends. I don't see Bieber ever coming in and wanting to talk at all. He's going to say, no, nothing happened through his advisors. He doesn't want to get in the middle of this. And it's sad.
What about a subpoena though? They can't if they've got let's say they have video, they know something.
If they have video, yeah, sure. But if they don't have video and what are you gonna do? Re-victimize the victim? And then the question is, are these people victims if they're willing to do that to get stardom? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have that with Fox News. There was a movie about the anchors that were doing things or allowing things to happen so they could get airtime. I mean,
I worked there then, Tim.
In the movies, this is nothing new. They had the casting couch. We all heard about it back in the 60s and 70s, even before that, where Alfred Hitchcock was alleged to have hit on people and said, if you don't, I'm not going to put you in my show. So power corrupts, and it's sad. I hope people come forward, not for the wealthy people that made it, but for the people who didn't make it, whose lives were ruined, who had no power, who didn't get any money. Do it for them, right? The ones who probably have mental health issues now and are suffering.
Yeah. By the way, another quick programming note, this crazy case out of Kentucky where the sheriff walks in and shoots and kills the judge in broad daylight in the courtroom. That sheriff, there's a lot of rumblings about why it happened, but nothing confirmed right now. Tommy's been following that story, and the sheriff is due for a hearing tomorrow. Tommy and I are trying to figure out if we're going to be able to stream that hearing, and if so, we're going to take it live and then possibly do a show on it later in the day. So keep an eye out for that. You've got to follow me on Twitter at Podcast STS and on Instagram, Surviving the Survivor. That's where I update the show times. I have not heard this name, Tommy Scoville, but you're much deeper in this than me. For Maureen Griffin, are you aware of Jonathan Oddie? He was taken into custody in 2018 and told the Secret Service about Diddy and the freak-offs. Shout out to Law and Crime. It's on there today. I guess you guys can check it out there.
I am. So Jonathan Oddie got arrested in 2018 after going into one of the former president's properties and shooting it up with a gun. Shot at the chandelier, started grabbing all kinds of stuff from the counter and smashing it on the floor. You might remember this story. He got shot in the legs 3 times in the process. But when they got him out of the hospital, he did a very, very interesting interview with the feds where he goes off on some tangents that would lead you to believe that maybe he's not quite all there about people in hip hop trying to take over the world and Diddy belonging to the black arm of the Illuminati. It was just some pretty bizarre stuff. But then all of a sudden he said to the guy, "Do you guys know who Sean Combs is?" And listening to it now, knowing what we know, it's a pretty damn bizarre interview, because what he said is that he was hired to be a sex slave, and he slept with Diddy's girlfriend while Diddy took care of himself while watching, and that he was basically stuck there as a sex slave. And a lot of the stuff just really rings true. And this was years before anybody was talking about the Cassie Ventura lawsuit or anything else. So it's pretty interesting. He was a dancer, an exotic dancer, and a porn star. And this is a recurring theme. The newest lawsuit that has just come up today, the one that people were referring, is another adult entertainer, except this one was a woman, and her name is Adria Sherry. But I think we're going to see a lot of this. I think personally, we're going to see a lot of this going forward, because he was hiring porn stars, he was hiring people like that for these freak offs, and now a lot of them are probably going to smell a payday.
Wow. The timeline here, the COE made this just so everyone can kind of keep things straight in their head. November 16th, Cassie Ventura, his girlfriend, files a lawsuit. We remember that horrible video came out. November 23rd, 2023, 2 new women file lawsuits alleging they were drugged and filmed. February 26, 2024, music producer Rodney Jones sues Diddy alleging assault and grooming. March 25th, the police raid. May 22nd, 2 more women in the industry file lawsuits. September 11th, Danny DeCane singer Dawn Richard files for SA. September 15th, 2024. Tim Jansen, is this sort of typical when you look back on it, that the feds put one piece on top of the other to build their case, and then the hammer drops?
Well, they got alerted, right? They saw that lawsuit, and I'm sure they've been contacted over the years, but they couldn't get anybody on the inside. He's got security forces. You got young people trying to make it in the world and want to be part of this party scene. They're careful who they let in. They're careful who goes to the freak offs. It's hard to get an undercover in there because they're not vouched for. And so when they finally are able to get enough, then they move pretty good. A lot of this should be part of the indictment. If not, it would be what's called 404B evidence, similar like conduct that the jury can consider whether he did this. It was a similar pattern that he would drug people, forcibly have them raped, and then he would videotape it and pleasure himself. Apparently that's what he likes to do. So none of it is good. It's all horrible. I don't see any jurors that would show any leniency towards him or any compassion, because they're all going to picture that could have been their daughter, their granddaughter. So he's got a tough road to hoe. And in the federal system, The evidence and laws are really tough, and the prosecutors are really good.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, you were joking, but if you did get the call, $10 million payday to defend Diddy, I mean, where do you even start with this? It's just like a
Simple.
C.
I tell my
Simple.
wife, honey, I am retiring. I don't know the exact date yet, but as soon as this trial is over, we're retiring. And but no, you obviously you start with, you got to go talk to the client, talk to his people, and then you got to figure out what the prosecutor, what they want, what the evidence is. Is there a cooperation agreement? Can they do it? Are they? Sometimes they don't want you to cooperate. They're like, we don't need anything. We don't want anything. You go to trial. I had in the FAMU bombing case I had here in Tallahassee, I went and said, is there a deal? Yeah, here's a deal. You can go to trial and get life, or you can plead to life. I'm like, okay, let me think about that. Oh, okay, I think we'll go to trial then. They don't always give you a deal. And they may not want to give him a deal because the crimes are so heinous that if any federal prosecutor gave a deal, or if the attorney general authorized a deal, that would really make them look bad, right? And who would he be going against? Who would he be cooperating against? Friends of the administration? Think about that, okay? If you had an opposite attorney general, like an Ed Meese that used to, Reagan's, attorney general, they'd be all over it, right? But you might have a friendly DOJ that, we'll get him, but we're not really that interested.
Tommy, back to you on this one from Carol Mary 46. Does Diddy get special treatment in prison, which is really a detention center here, because of his celebrity? I guess not too many people are getting too close to him. You also mentioned last time there's someone assigned, a brother's keeper, another inmate to watch him. Is that still going on?
Yeah, that would be for the first 72 hours. My Brother's Keeper is the program that where they train guys to watch someone who is threatening to unalive themselves. Every 4 hours, they'll swap that guy out. So over the course of the day, he'll see a bunch of different people. But this is why the Epstein thing was ridiculous, because they claimed he was on that watch. So not only would the cameras have to be out, not only would the two guards have to have fallen asleep, but an inmate sitting across from a piece of glass, because it's not even a cell door, it's a solid piece of glass. And an inmate sitting across from him 3 feet away must have fallen asleep as well. I mean, it makes no sense. But yeah, they would still be watching him now. As far as getting treatment, he's getting treated differently, to be sure. And that treatment is special when you compare it to other people's treatment. Does that mean he's getting treated better? Not really. I mean, he probably has way more access to his attorney than anybody else in there, but that's just because of the attorney. I got a lot of legal visits, right? Probably on par with the number he's getting.
I guarantee you that warden is giving his attorney visits.
Absolutely.
But Tommy, somebody, if he was in general population, would go after him, or
instantly,
or they would go up to him and say, "Hey, listen, I'll protect you, but I want $10,000 a week. You pay my baby mama," right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think the biggest threat, more than him getting his ass handed to him, is all of the people that are going to say, I want 10 grand to protect you. I think that's going to be, and the problem becomes, right, you got the big guys, the big homies in the unit, and there's never enough of them, right? For real. Like, you decide you're going to pay 3 of them, a 4th dude's going to come up and go, how come I ain't getting paid? And pretty soon it's going to be every single dude in the unit. And he's not as well off as he was a few years back. He's definitely a lot thinner than he used to be. The billion is not realistic anymore.
And I probably think his money is, he's probably had trust lawyers. He's got it all in irrevocable trust that go into his kids, right? He had to know this day was coming.
You would think so.
And so he has maybe, he has like $30 million available. The other is probably not accessible to the government.
Tommy, what's the story with Jaguar Wright? How does she have so much information on all these people? What do we know about her?
The community that researches Diddy, and there is a community now that's pretty into this, kind of is split on Jaguar Wright. She's really, really forward and colorful and a hell of a lot of fun to watch. But there are a lot of people who seem to question where she gets all of her information. She definitely knows everybody in that scene. Like, there's nobody in there that she doesn't know. But I think that she was pretty tainted by, she hates Diddy in a way that most people don't. And She's fun to watch. I don't know how much all of the stuff is verifiable, but boy, she really comes out with quite a bit of dirt on him.
By the way, this is a clip I'm about to play from Entertainment Tonight. A lot of clips are starting to resurface. This is Diddy back in '99 on Entertainment Tonight.
So the hottest ticket around.
They won't even give me a permit for the parties, man. They don't want me to throw the parties no more. But we ain't gonna stop. We gonna keep on having fun, bringing people together from all walks of life. You're gonna hear about my parties. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we want to have a good time, you know.
So I'm going to go back on that. Probably be arresting me. I'll play that back. That's what he just said. They'll probably be arresting me. Here we go.
No more. But we ain't gonna stop. We're gonna keep on having fun, bringing people together from all walks of life. You're gonna hear about my parties. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we want to have a good time. You know, whenever you bring up a different element into people's environment, things that broaden people's horizon, people get intimidated. There's a lot of people out there that feel intimidated by it. It ain't nothing but breaking down racial barriers, breaking down generation barriers. People from all walks of life. Ron Perlman talking to Jay-Z, Jay-Z talking to, you know what I'm saying? It just goes on and on, you know, it's just like people from all walks of life connecting and getting together. Yeah.
Your parties are the hottest ticket in town. People dying to get into your party. How does that make you feel?
I mean, it's cool. You know, it doesn't make me feel any way special. It doesn't make me feel like a bigger person. It just makes me feel like I know how to throw a party.
Yeah.
He sure does. It's called a freak off. Tommy, what do you think when you watch that?
Did not age well. You know what I mean? There are so many clips. There's a great one of him saying, you know, what makes a great party, and he said, you know, you got to have locks on the doors to keep the ladies inside. You know, you see some of these things, and that was on the Conan O'Brien show. But you watch this stuff and you think, oh, did not age well. You know, I think he was telling us, right? I think that the arrogance of this guy really starts coming through the more we look back at some of the things that he said. He has been talking about stuff like this from the very first day he threw a party. Yeah.
By the way, someone's asking when he's back in court. From what we can tell, and it's not that easy to get your hand on the docket, at least not from me. He's back tomorrow, but there's some sort of conference hearing. Tim, just on the topic of, you know, meeting with his attorney, how often is this guy Mark Agnifilio going in to see Diddy? Is it every day now? How does that work?
I guarantee you that's his number one client right now. I guarantee you him and especially if he's getting paid by the hour. And he'll probably spend 3 or 4 hours a day with him every day. And if he doesn't, he'll have an associate go in because he's not getting visitation. So the only person he can talk to is his lawyer, legal team, or private investigator. And he wants to talk to people.
Yeah. And Tommy, I mean, human nature is to want to interact. But is there some sort of time limit for these attorneys with Diddy? What's it like when he's meeting with an attorney? Is it a private room? Is there a guard in there?
It's in what they call
there's no guard. In there.
No, it's called an MP room. It's the multi-purpose room. It's used for all kinds of stuff. It is usually in a unit. Since he's in the special management unit, they probably have to walk him to one of those rooms because there won't be one on the floor he's on. And there's absolutely no limit whatsoever to the amount of time they'll let him meet with his attorney. It's bizarre. If his attorney comes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and says, I want to visit my client, they're pulling him out, putting him in a room so that they can visit him. And I would imagine he's getting an awful, I know 6 hours was the last time that his attorney came out and said that he had met with him. He said, I spent about 6 hours with him today. So they're not going to limit the amount of time that he can spend with his attorneys. I promise you that.
Yeah. By the way,
paid well. He's getting paid well if he spends 6 hours with him.
Grady03 brings this up. We talked about his quote unquote hunger strike that he's not eating. And this was also kind of floated out there as a rumor because he's scared of being poisoned, someone trying to take him out. Is that, Tom, you think there's any credence to that? Is that legitimate? No, right?
No chance. Okay. The police that are the COs that are working in the chow hall are literally watching the people that put that dude's meals together like nothing else. They're not going to poison him. That's not realistic.
Linda Mitchell, back to Tommy on this. Do you think there are videos that are still going to come out with surprising celebrities?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think we're gonna see all kinds of videos, and there are gonna be some surprises. A lot of them aren't gonna be. A lot of them are gonna be names that you're gonna go, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But there'll definitely be some surprises on there.
By the way, La Mesa, getting to the bottom of it, October 9th, apparently, Combs' next official court date. So we will certainly be on that. There are no cameras in the federal system, so it's all sketches, and you find out if someone is, I guess, live tweeting from inside. Otherwise, you got to wait till they get out. Tim Jansen, I mean, there's an avalanche of lawsuits. There was a story today about all the lawsuits pretty much dating back to 99, and they're far too long to list. But this is the one that people are talking about now. This is Adria Sherry English, a former adult entertainer, and she basically says that she was sex trafficked. And she says, this is a quote: "The things that the things that we were forced on me to do haunt me to this day." She says, "I anticipate testifying in New York's federal court to help ensure Diddy is imprisoned for life." There was open drug use, all these things, sex in public. There were security guards where the bedrooms were. You just heard Tommy say that even Diddy himself that said that the rooms were locked. Apparently now it seems like, people are coming out and saying this. What about these ancillary lawsuits, this flood of lawsuits that are coming in or have come in? Do they all kind of take a back seat? How do you keep up with all these things all at one time?
Well, you got blood in the water. Now everybody feels like they want to come get a piece. Hey, if they're going to get paid, I'm a victim. I want to get paid. So maybe they're all feel more comfortable filing these now that they think P. Diddy can't get out. And maybe they're thinking all of P. Diddy's guards and people like that aren't getting paid. Maybe they're not going to come after me. And I would assume that they'll be able to find out who is on payroll, and they're going to individually reach out to those people at their home and ask them what they saw and give them a choice. Right, Tommy? You can sit in one chair or another chair in the courtroom. You decide which one you want. You want to sit next to the judge, or you want to sit next to a defense lawyer? We'll give you a half hour to decide.
Yep. And there's a lot of that going around right now, I promise. There's
sure.
A whole lot of people that are going to have to make a decision whether or not they're going to be a witness or whether or not they're going to be a defendant, rather.
Yeah.
It's ugly.
And, people are pointing out that these many of these people were drugged at these parties, unbeknownst to them. Gen X.
Yeah, a lot of victims. There are a lot of victims here. And when I made my comments about some people don't want to come forward, trust me, I know there's a lot of victims that were innocently drugged and raped. Those are the ones that need the justice for them, not the ones that ended up becoming superstars, but the ones that were drugged and raped, which apparently is a lot of them.
Looking at these comments, which are excellent. Yeah, apparently. Apparently, by the way,
there's a comment that Diddy's going to plea and get 15 years. No chance. No chance at all. No, I don't care what his cooperation is. He's not getting 15 years.
There you go. Logan Dowell hearing it from the former federal prosecutor. So a few more things. We'll take some more questions. Love doing these kind of early afternoon lives. We're going to be back at 7:30 on our OG story, which is the Adelsons. And Tim will be here for that, as well as two retired judges as we dive into possible plea negotiations in that case. But Stephen Baldwin, who is the father of, is it Hillary Baldwin? Is that his wife? Who's
Haley?
Haley
Baldwin.
I knew I was screwing that up. Can't keep up with all the pop stuff. But anyway,
yeah, I knew.
He has 103,000 followers. I'm not sure if this was TikTok or Instagram. Anyway, he went on. This is now Stephen Baldwin, who, by the way, was in the background the entire time Alec Baldwin was on trial before that case was dismissed. He says, Stephen Baldwin says, and I quote, "You've heard the expression, the calm before the storm. There's always a calm before the storm, but then there's an other calm after the storm. There's a calm and then a storm and then another calm. And in that latter calm is the preparation for the next storm. This guy sounds like a guy giving an awards acceptance speech, making no sense at the Oscars. But what, if anything, you read into that? Makes no sense to me. But he's talking about storms and after storms. And by the way, Tim, stay safe, as there is a possible Cat 3 heading up toward Tim Jansen's way. Tommy Scoville, what do you make of Stephen Baldwin's
I think that if you're one of the people behind the scenes, if you're one of the people that know a little bit more about this than the rest of the world, I would imagine that as Justin Bieber's father-in-law, he's probably had some dirt that he's been able to come across that we're not aware of. And I think that this was a cryptic and weird way of saying there's a lot more to come. This is a lot worse than anybody thinks it is. And if his daughter and his son-in-law have been open about this, I would imagine he knows.
You see, these are sketches from last week. Diddy with his attorney, Mark Agnifilio. And that attorney, if you missed it, Tim said is probably being paid $5 to $10 million up front for his work. Who knows what he's going to get on the back end of that lawyerly deal, if anything. But again, denied that $50 million bond. This is interesting, Tommy. Money talks in Tinseltown. Do you think there's going to be a contract on Diddy with the videos they don't want public? Let me add a question. Can you contract? I mean, how tough is it to contract a killing inside a place like the MDC? Is it easy to find someone?
It would not be difficult to find somebody. Getting at him where he's at would be impossible. Literally impossible. The odds that an inmate will get close enough to him to make contact with him is absolutely zero. When he is moved from one cell to another, everybody else will be locked down. He'll have 3 guards that take him everywhere he goes. They couldn't get at him where he's at now to save themselves. So pre-trial, a hit probably isn't going to happen. If they wanted to get him once he gets into general population, that would not be a difficult thing to accomplish. But where he's at now, I mean, he really is, segregated. There's no way to do enough justice to just how segregated he is.
So, Tommy, I'll tell you an example I had. I had a guy that was affiliated with a gang. I won't say what gang, but they wanted to get a snitch. And the snitch, they moved to the shoe unit, right? So this gang member allegedly was going to flip against his own gang.
Yeah.
So they put him in the shoe unit so he could get near the snitch. That's how they play chess in prison. Okay. Yeah. They got him near the snitch because he claimed he was going to get, and they had to protect him too. So they have ways in these facilities to get to people.
Yeah. Tommy, how long, on average, like how long will someone stay at the MDC before they're shipped out? Is it just like while pending trial, or?
Yeah. So once he is convicted, the paperwork will go in for him to get shipped. In the parlance of the inmate, they call it the next train smoking. And he would literally be on the next train smoking. So when they pack up the next bus to go, he will be on it. In a place like that, he's not in the sticks. He'll probably be gone within 14 days tops after the conviction. And if you're out in the woods, if you're in a place that doesn't have a big MDC, then it might be a little longer. But there'll be so many other inmates there that are leaving, on a rotation that, within a couple of weeks, he'll be gone off to his forever home.
Wow. Sarah McCrister, if I'm saying it right. Back to Tommy on this. Jay-Z, keep hearing his name. What's going to happen with Jay-Z if you had a crystal ball?
I would say that I don't know how he could get out of this unscathed. I really don't. If you start to look, this is a recurring theme with a bunch of people in the hip hop industry, that they take younger people into their tutelage and nothing good happens anytime, this is, going on. And now they're relooking at all of these things. He met Beyonce when she was 16. He flew Rhiannon in from the island she lived at when she was a teenager, underage, and without parents being with him or anything else. There's a lot of really weird stuff surrounding this guy. And again, dead bodies, right? People keep finding dead bodies around both of these guys. So I don't know. It would be interesting if somehow he dodges this. I don't think it's possible.
Someone's asking if he would ever, in any scenario, end up in Gen Pop. I assume the answer to that is no.
The big, well, listen, he can end up in general population within the. So he's going to be walking the main yard. He's not going to be locked down, but the yard he's going to be walking is probably going to be all gang dropouts and all. It's going to be one of 3 prisons. It's going to be in Tucson, in Terre Haute, or in Florida. But those places that somebody just happened up in Terre Haute, Indiana. There was a guy that was brought in for doing something terrible that got a 6-year-old girl HIV, and he didn't make it 2 months on his life sentence. That was at a dropout yard. That was at a protection yard. You can't protect somebody if somebody wants to stab him. I promise you. And he could end up walking a yard. Like general population is a theory, but I don't think that there's much chance of it. Even if they were to put him there, he wouldn't last long. He would have to, at some point, ask for protection because there's just going to be too many people to pay.
So, Tommy, Coleman's that bad?
Yeah, Coleman's bad. Yeah.
I know they got a camp. I get clients that go to camp all the time there.
Oh, it's a compound. So there are 2 USPs. One is fully active and the other is a dropout yard. And then they've got a couple of FCIs and a camp. So it's a very big facility, but one of the USPs is a dropout yard. So it's, and what people seem to miss is, I'm not going to mention any gangs because I don't ever do that, but this guy could be a big wig in a huge prison gang, moving dopes, killing people, doing all of that on Monday. Get into an argument with the gang on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, he could be at a dropout yard. That dude's no less of a killer than he was on Monday. He just now happens to not be able to walk main line either. So these places are filled with really, really dangerous individuals. I mean, I promise you.
Very, very frightening. I'll tell you that. I'm not up on my hip hop wars. Jimmy McNutty, OJ trial watcher since 90, whatever. There's also, Tommy, the Tupac murder and play. Keefe D goes on trial March 17th, 2025 in Vegas. Keefe might not be afraid of Diddy anymore. Anything to add to this dynamic that's playing out here between different rap stars?
I think that Jimmy probably nailed it. I really do, because what I think that was a real thing as he starts to get ready to go and testify. Being afraid of Diddy and all of his people was probably going to be something that would have played a factor. And I think a lot less people are afraid of Diddy today than they were a week ago.
There you go. Final thing for Tim, and then we'll take a couple questions on the way out with final thoughts. But Tim, we heard the next official court date is October 9th in this case. What do we see then? What should we expect?
I think the judge is going to want to know who the permanent lawyers are on the case. They'll probably ask the prosecution, okay, how long do you, they may ask him at sidebar, hey, do you anticipate any superseding indictments? Do you anticipate more people being brought in for scheduling reasons? So I know whether or not to set this for trial now. And then they're going to give him kind of a timeline, and the judge will set the trial. You say October 9th. He may set it for January, right? He's not going to set it in December. He'll set it for January just as a docket date, right? No one's going to be trying this case in January.
Tommy, with stories like this come all, kind of the rumors and the conspiracies. One of them kind of struck me. And I saw it in a couple different places, and I'm not going to mention who's on there, but let's just put it this way. These are the biggest celebrities in the music business. And apparently Diddy, according to these reports, or maybe rumors, a better way to say it, sold one of these videos with all these people in compromised positions for $500 million on the dark web. Have you heard this one?
I have heard this one. Yeah,
wow.
I've absolutely heard this one. This is a rumor that had some legs for a while, and I think it may be surfacing back up because of what is going on now. But as I said earlier, at one point he had $740 million and he was claiming $1 billion, and Forbes did more of a deep dive on it. He's ditched out with the liquor company out of Europe that was doing De Leon and Ciroc booze that was making him $66 million a year on average.
And he's out of that?
That's gone. They bought him out for $200 million. They're estimating now that his net worth is, and this was before any of the arrest. They said his closer to $400 million. Most of the real estate he has is actually mortgaged pretty high, and they think that he might have about 200 that's liquid. And I realize that's a ton of money, right? Yeah. But it isn't $1 billion either. The Macy's dropped Sean John as a line. They're not pushing any of that anymore. His fragrance line is defunct. His glasses defunct. He had to get out of his TV production company, Revolt, which he started to help produce stuff for hip hop and for sort of youth culture. He's out of that. So there's nothing left. The only thing he still has is the music catalog at Bad Boy. But if you look at at where Bad Boy is in New York, it looks like the riots. It's just destroyed. There's nothing there anymore. And they at one time said the entire catalog was worth about $120 million. And they're saying now he'd be lucky if he could sell it for half of that.
Yeah, and I think I heard he had $100 million mortgage out on his LA mansion or something crazy along those lines. Tommy, I got to ask you this one, and then I promise we'll get some final thoughts here. Do you think there's a connection with J-Lo and Ben Affleck breaking up due to the Diddy situation, otherwise known as Benifer? I'll answer that. I just think that Ben Affleck's a miserable human being. She didn't want to deal with him. But what do you think, Tommy Scoville?
I think Ben Affleck is a miserable human being that no one wants to deal with. He's a gambling addict and all kinds of other issues that he seems to have in his life. But on the flip side, I don't know how stoked I would be to stick around with her right now. You know, if he was teetering on the edge, I think what's about to come up in her life would have been a pretty good time to make an exit strategy, because it's about to get really, really ugly.
By the way, Diddy's Star Island house, they allege, is worth $50 million, actually worth $20 million. I'm sure that is probably true. The people who are coming out of the woodwork on this, I saw Rosie O'Donnell. She was Cuff Daddy's neighbor on Star Island, and Rosie's like, I didn't know this was going. I had no idea.
I wonder why she wasn't invited.
Yeah.
Shocker. Shocker.
She's, by the way, not a nice person. I'll tell you a 9-hour story in 30 seconds. This dates me, but I worked as an NBC page on the very first ever Rosie O'Donnell show, and they couldn't get anyone to sit. It was in the same studio as SNL. They couldn't get anyone in there because no one cared about it. It ended up being a huge hit. So I ran out and I pulled over 2 tour buses. This is a true story. And off came 2 tour buses filled with tourists from Tokyo. And they filled all the seats. And then I got high five for doing that. But they made it look like the studio was really full. And they probably thought they were filming a Japanese show, but they were not. And I don't think any of them spoke English. So they sat there and listened to Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah. So that's is my story.
Listen to Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes. Look at this. Kathy saying, honestly, this is the most I've ever been entertained by P. Diddy. That's because you've got Tommy Scoville and Tim Jansen. Tommy, your closing thoughts before we get there. Now, Khloe Kardashian, another big name. She is now revealing that she once ran into Justin Bieber at one of Diddy's quote unquote hedonistic parties. This is now a resurfaced claim that came up in an old episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I mean, Tommy, you alluded to this earlier. Are there kind of cyber sleuths right now just digging up all this old material? And what do you expect next in this hedonistic tale, Tommy Scoville?
I think we're going to see. So we've been hearing all of these reports about the sex workers that were hired for these freak offs. I think, as Tim alluded to earlier, there are a lot of people trying to get out in front of this, right? People who are going, oh, crap, I'm going to be on one of those freak off tapes. What I think is we're going to see a lot of people that are going to start, things are going to be leaked, and we're going to start finding out who some of these people that are already working with the feds is, because I think there's going to be a lot of them.
You think look at this, the Kardashians are completely involved? I did not say that. Kim, don't come after me. That was Jody B. You can find her somewhere. But you think they're going to get dragged into this?
I don't think there's any chance they don't. The mom is very, very close friends with Diddy, and there's again a lot of really old stuff from that family that's not aging well when talking about Diddy and the parties and everything else.
Whoa. If you don't know him, now you do. Tommy Scoville, former inmate in the federal prison system, but a great guy. He hails from Vermont. Tim Jansen, the famed criminal defense attorney out of Tallahassee, who's going to be back at 7:30 on the Adelsons. Tim, got to give you your final thoughts here. I don't know why they wouldn't call you for the $10 million deal. And Tim, you should ask for $25 million. He's got Would you do it for? Would you be on a plane today for 25 million, Tim Jansen?
Yes, I'd take you with me. I'd have you be my personal private investigator.
I would do it. I would love it. Diddy, please reach out. We will be on your plane headed to see you from Florida.
I don't want to get on his plane. I don't want to get on his plane.
Okay, we'll get on another plane then. I listen to Tim. I'm just
tell you what, I'll fetch meals. Isn't that how Diddy started at Uptown Records?
Yeah.
Yeah,
please
you
come
could be
along.
an assistant too, Tommy. You could be our intelligence.
We need Tommy with us for sure. We need someone with experience behind those bars.
There you go.
Tim Jansen, your final thoughts. You can take it anywhere you would want today.
It's funny that we all knew something was going on. Everybody knew something was going on. And I don't know why it's surprising to people what's coming out, right? I always tell you, people who tell you who they are, we just try to look beyond it. They really are who they are. And we're seeing the P. Diddy, that video. There's no way to explain that video. I don't care what drugs he was on. That's the P. Diddy. That's the P. Diddy that was acting with guards, locking doors, keeping people. That's the P. Diddy you saw. And it's just troubling that he's affecting so many people's lives.
I think that's a great way to end it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of, I guess, kind of poking fun or minimizing this because of Diddy's involvement, but these are some of the most heinous crimes. People and it appears minors too, allegedly drugged with things done to them that you wouldn't even do to an animal. So this is horrific. And if it is true, Diddy deserves exactly what is coming his way, as everyone else who is involved. So huge thanks again to Tommy Scoville, Tim Jansen. Please share the show with friends, subscribe, hit the like button, tell people that you get to see Tommy Scoville and Tim on here, and maybe they'll come and join the discussion. We'll see you 7:30 tonight. Till then, love you, America. Love you, Tallahassee. Love you, Arizona. Love you, New York City. And let's get justice in this case.